And then my three favourite little liquids for making life easy when you're doing a gearbox. Wendy said, what about the end of the vacuum cleaner? So for every turn on the input, we get less output because they want to do the maths. Right, the gearbox rebuild starts today. Well, it doesn't start today. The assembly of the gearbox starts today. So there's all the bits, all the new bits, new seals, new clutch plates, new thrust plate, new bearings, seals, new bits and pieces. Some of the other parts that I've cleaned up, bell housing, engine mounts, intercoolers, more engine mount brackets. That's our reduction box. And there's some internals of the gearbox. And that's the main part of the gearbox. Doesn't look all cleaned up, but it is. And just got to replace bits and pieces like seals and bearings, and quite a big job. But I've got most of today before I have to head bush to get this all fixed. So let's hope it all goes together well. And I'm using copperies for all my bolts. I'm using the good old Stag for any hydraulic hose fittings, and the good old aviation gasket sealer for metal to metal and paper gasket seals. And then my three favourite little liquids for making life easy when you're doing a gearbox.
Where are you up to?
Well, I'm just about to put in the clutch plates, the new clutch plates that were the cause of all our problems. Just about to go in. So here's the first one, nice and new. Second one, nice and new. Third one. Fourth one. And the fifth one. So it's a clutch pack for the forward drive. These are the clutches for the reverse, which go in later on. My problem is, see the scoring on here? Right. So it's got a couple of big scores on it, which I've got to clean up because it's you can see here he's bashed. The last person who rebuilt it has really bashed it on. And it doesn't need to be that tight. See there, the scoring?
Yeah.
So I'll clean that up.
What's all this?
That's my OCD-ness.
Very neat.
I try to stay neat. And there's the starter motor I rebuilt.
Where are you up to now?
Just putting the end plate on.
The final stretch?
Final stretch, yeah. After the end plate, we've got the oil pump that runs on here, and then yeah, that's it. And then the reduction drive on the back. So we're close. Well, look at that. I've got the oil pump on, the front face, all new clutch plates, pressure plates, thrust plates, but the old shaft here, if you zoom right in, have a look. I don't know if you can see it down here. No, I need a bit of light on there. But anyway, the shaft's quite pitted and worn. So that's where the seal lives, down here, in there. Now this is an oil seal, what's called a lip seal. So it's got a lip here to stop the oil coming out under pressure. And that seal runs on the shaft. Now, because the shaft's worn, that seal is going to chew out pretty quickly. So we have what's called a speedy sleeve. And this speedy sleeve slips on here, and you knock it down with this tool. So this tool isn't going to work because it doesn't go over the cap far enough, so I have to use another tool. And then the seal will then run on this speedy sleeve, which is perfect condition. So that's the next job, to knock this speedy sleeve down onto the shaft so I can fit the final oil seal onto the assembly down here, and it presses in there. So that's the final job on this end. Then we've got the other end to finish. We've got the reduction box to put on, and then we'll clean this gearbox up, give it a coat of paint. I've got new oil lines. I've refurbished the intercooler, so it should be good to go. Wendy just asked me, what would you do if you had a pitted shaft? What's the other options? So another option is to put the shaft in a lathe and turn it down to the next size seal, right? So then you get a nice finish, because the spline here is actually smaller diameter than the shaft below it. So you can actually turn this down by a couple of thou, or a couple of couple of points of a millimetre to get it all new again, and then you wouldn't have to use a speedy sleeve. So that's your other option, is to turn the shaft down. But because I don't have a lathe handy, I've gone for option B. There you go.
What's going on now?
Well, the problem was the speedy sleeve fitting, the tool you use to put the speedy sleeve on isn't deep enough, and it hits the end of the shaft. So I've been rummaging around in my workshop to try and find something that I could utilise, a bit of pipe or something. And Wendy said, what about the end of the vacuum cleaner? Look at this. That fits like perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that off flush. I can use this over the top to hit on it, and it should knock it down. So we'll give that a crack, eh?
What's happened now? You've changed your idea a bit.
I thought vacuum cleaner. Let's use the vacuum cleaner bit. Look, that fits straight on there. That fits straight on there.
Yeah, you don't have to destroy the vacuum cleaner.
That goes on there.
Woo!
Let's see how it's going to work. This isn't MacGyvering, this is Wendy Gyvering.
It's repurposing. What are you doing?
Just putting ATF on here.
Why?
Because everything you put together when you're rebuilding a transmission gearbox or transmission, you have to ATF it. So that when it starts up, every surface is pre-lubed.
Look at that! He's a clever girl, then.
Is it going to work?
I don't know. You're going to just hit it. Baby, I saw that drop in. Look at that. What did you call it? A Wendy Iver? Wendy MacGyver?
Yeah, it's a Wendy MacGyver.
Oh, look.
Look at that.
What?
There we go. Speedy sleeve is in.
Oh, that's incredible. How many people around the world are now going to go and grab their vacuum cleaners when they need to fix this gearbox?
I know.
Oh, if you do, by any chance, end up using your vacuum cleaner to do this job,
show us.
Please let us know. We'll take a photo because it would be hilarious. And that's the...
That's the seal.
It's all beautiful.
Job done.
What's happening now?
The last part of the puzzle, which is the reduction gearbox. We run I think it's about 1.8 to 1 reduction. So for every turn on the input, we get less output. God, didn't want to do the maths. Yeah, so that's the final part, is this. Oh, and well, that's the final part of the gearbox. Then we've got the bell housing that goes on there and the adapter plate. So, but I want to get this finished today before I go back to work, because I've got to drive back to work tonight. I want to get this finished so that I can paint it, because I'd love to fit it onto the boat next week.
So you're going to hang it on the painting tree, or will it be a bit heavy and break the branch off?
Break the branch. Oh, sorry, branch. This will just go on a bit of cardboard to paint. Just tightening me nuts. You got to tighten them in sequence, you see.
I know. What's the sequence? Just round and round?
You go gently around and around, and then you do opposites. Like a star pattern.
Tap, tap.
So what are these? 9, 16. This silly American system. I mean, who invented sizes that have 2 numbers? Like 9 and 16. Why not just make it like 14 or 13 or 15? And then you've got to work out, like, you've got 9/16, then you've got to work out what the next size is. Because it's not 10/16, it's 5/8. And then the next size
Because that's 4.5
is 11/16. And then the next size is 12/16, which is something 4s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get the idea.
So, yeah. So, it's doing my head in, this 2-number system.
Oh, you have to use different... Oh, okay. Different ones on different bits.
Yeah.
Why?
That's the way life is.
So they make this a different size to this?
Yeah.
Why?
Which is different size to this, different size to that,
Yeah,
different
but
size to
why?
this. That's the way life is.
But why would they make
Because
that different to that?
This part was designed by Fred Nurk.
Oh.
This part was designed by John Doe. This part was designed by George. So they've all got different sizes.
In the same gearbox?
Yeah. Unless it's a KTM motorcycle.
And are they all Imperial?
They're all the 2-number system, yeah.
Okay, at least there's some...
Because Borg Warner is American. That's an American company. Make beautiful gearboxes. I had many in my vehicles. And this particular one is made in Massachusetts, I think.
There's a song about that.
Can't remember. Anyway, they make beautiful gearboxes.
I can't believe they make that a different size to that, a different size to that. But why? Is there a reason why they have to be different sizes?
Because someone said.
So it's nothing to do with strength or anything?
No.
And jiggle and vibration and the sound waves that jiggle some out and not others.
No, well, bolt tension hasn't got to do with the thread or the surface area or anything like that. It's actually the stretch in the bolt, which is how you set your bolt tension with a. I could go right into it.
Yeah. Okay.
With new bolts, but these aren't so critical.
Yeah.
Because we've got a paper gasket in here. That's your best friend for paper gaskets.
And what's that called?
That's called MR5923. Aviation gasket sealer. Mate of mine, Greg, put me onto this. Old Gregory. He's an aviation electrician, and he put me onto this back in about 1978. And I've been using it ever since. Not this bottle, but this stuff. So anyway, and all the bolts that go in here, we use copper-ease. It's a clay-based anti-seize, and it contains copper. So that's what I use on all the bolts, so that in 20 years' time, when the next bloke's undoing this gearbox, it all comes apart beautifully. And then for all your hydraulic hoses, we use Stag, another great American product. We use that on all couplings.
All right, so you're really nearly done, aren't you?
Yeah, just got to nip these up
And then paint it.
Yeah, but I won't have time before I go to work. So I've got to replace the breather, because that's starting to rust a bit.
Is that something easy to get hold of? Or
Yeah.
online?
We just go down the local auto shop
Oh, okay.
and get one of the breathers. I've got to, I want to reseal all these brass fittings, top and bottom. I've already reconditioned the intercooler, which sits up
Isn't
here.
that the thing we got fixed in Costa Rica?
Yeah, we had that re-soldered in Costa Rica. But what I've done, you can see the stag here, right, coming out. I've just cleaned it out because it was a bit, what happens, the salt water goes in here and you end up with, see there?
Just
There.
see the holes, yeah.
These holes get full of deposits. So it's called rodding. You get a rod and you run it down there and you clean them out. So I've done that. I've repainted it all up and cleaned it all up. So that's ready to go on. We've got our main intercooler.
That looks heavy.
This is the main...
That looks new because it's got paint on it.
Well, it's not new. I've just done the same thing. I've rodded it, made new gaskets. You saw that in an earlier video. And this is another product I use, which is the Ultra Blue. Great product for rubber gaskets. You can see it oozing out here. And whenever you're using Ultra Blue, put enough on so it squeezes out. Wait till half your set period, and then tighten it up. So then you get a nice bond between your rubber and the copper. That's our earth point to stop electrolysis, which I explained earlier. That's for either draining or venting to stop air things. Yeah, so that's all ready to go.
Get in there, babe, get in there.
I've also painted up the engine mounts because they were pretty daggy. I've also got new bolts for the engine mounts, tidied up the thread. You can see here where it's badly worn. So I'm changing it so that won't run in that position. And I checked these, I bashed them, and I couldn't get the rubber to delaminate, so they are still good. Dipstick, I thought I'd paint that nice and yellow.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like
Right,
that.
and I cleaned it up a bit, took all the rust off.
It's a nice
So
dipstick.
yeah,
We've got a theme going there. We've got red and yellow.
And the bell housing.
That's
which,
very bright and jolly.
I've got to touch up a few parts of
Yeah.
it. But yeah, that fits on the end of
Does
the
that
gearbox.
mean that the whole of that thing's going to end up red or yellow?
No, this is all going to end up yellow, back to original yellow. Bought a new can of yellow, which is here. So what we're going to do, we're going to degrease it, put on some red oxide all-purpose primer, which will bond nicely to all this rusty crap, and then give it a good coat of epoxy enamel in yellow so that it matches the rest of the engine.
So why the other thing red? I'm curious.
Just as an accent.
Oh, beautiful, babe.
Yeah.
Accent colour. Good
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, I just thought that because it's a sort of the separation between the engine and the gearbox, and I just accent that bit.